introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about who you are and where you're from. Oh, awesome. Rachel teaches comp sci at a community college. Oh my God. And you're a volunteer with a Girls Who Code Club. We absolutely love to hear that. Thank you so much for volunteering. Hello, Roxanne, studying CS in DC. For folks just joining, we're going to start in about a minute or two, and we're just introducing ourselves in the chat so you can see who else is here participating in this session tonight. Oh my gosh. Hi, Michelle. Hello at UT Austin. Oh my God, CS majors. Hello, Alex. Hello, Losa. We have comp sci and business at USC. It's so great to see. So far, we've got like every coast. I'm in Chicago, third coast. Hi, Jesse. Hi. Hello. Hi, Amanda. Hi, Tanya. Hi, Ayana. So great to have you all here. Ayana, I've seen your name before. Yeah, Girls Who Code alumni. If you're an alum from Girls Who Code programs, feel free to tell us about that. For everyone that just joined, we are introducing ourselves in the chat. We're going to start this panel in about 30 seconds to a minute. I'm really excited to have you all here. Get settled, grab a glass of water. Hi, Shreya. Yay. Hi, Bella. Hello, everybody. We have SIP alums and an instructor from SUNY Binghamton. Brianna, hello. Lots of, Alyssa, my colleague wrote, I love seeing all these College Loop members. So glad to have a lot of our Girls Who Code College Loop folks here. Hello, M. Hello, Elisa. Hi, Palak. Thank you all so much for being here. We know that your time is really valuable. It is a busy time of year. It is a Thursday night. I'm in Chicago. It is pitch black outside. I'm sure it's the same for you, unless you're in, a better climate, in which case, congrats to you. We are going to start our conversation tonight. This is part of an ongoing webinar series called Girls Who Code Talks. And this series came out of the pandemic. And I have to say it is one of the silver linings of an otherwise very tragic and traumatic experience. And the silver lining here is that we're able to bring you expert speakers from across the country, and you are able to join us from literally all over the country. And I think we have a couple of international folks here too, which is amazing. And this is something that we weren't able to do before the pandemic, or rather we were able to do, but we didn't think to do. And it has been just an incredible series. We've had a number of different talks on different topics all year long. This is our last one of 2021. So thank you for being here. And JL, great question. Yes, this will be recorded. We will send out the recording tomorrow. But to kick it off, just to introduce myself, I'm Emily Heismoss. I'm the Director of Alumni Programs at Girls Who Code. I've met a lot of you. I see a lot of familiar names, which is really incredible. And I'm really excited about the topic tonight. We are talking about getting a technical job that isn't engineering. And I just want to say that's no shade on the engineers in the house. If you end up an engineer at any point in your career, that is amazing. We support you. That is part of our mission too. But there are so many different technical roles in the industry. And I think a lot of times when folks are new to this field, you think like computer science engineer, and you don't necessarily think about the full spectrum of options that are out there. And that's what this is going to be a conversation about. So with no further ado, I'd like to invite Cadence Daniels to join me on stage. Cadence is our amazing moderator tonight. And Cadence is a senior UX, which is user experience interaction designer. We want to define our terms tonight at GE, which is a Girls Who Code partner. We are so happy that she is here to moderate this panel. We've met earlier. She has really big plans for you tonight and is, pretty recently in this field herself and knows exactly what this transition is like. At GE, she leads the growth of an in-house design system and component library. And Cadence, you can tell us what that means. After 2 years as a software developer and UI designer. So here again, we've got moving between different fields, exploring different roles. And beyond her efforts to elevate inclusion, entrepreneurship, and community development, Cadence is a devoted advocate for everyday people through innovation of human interaction, creativity, and empowerment. Cadence, that is a great bio. That is a really wonderful bio. I would love to turn the floor over to you, and you can tell us more about what that means and bring on our other panelists.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited. We can talk about the bio, but in reality, it's just a fancy way of saying my job is to advocate for everyday people. So thinking like engineers, thinking like PMs, thinking like the people that actually use the tools that we build. That's what I do on a day-to-day basis. And so I absolutely get where you guys are coming from and trying to navigate which of those functions you want to play a role in. I get it. I have had engineering roles, I have had project management roles, and so I completely understand. And like Emily said, I'm not that far out. I'm only 4 years into my career. And so happy to sit here and mediate this conversation around all the different opportunities that you have. And I'm joined today with three amazing panelists. We have Lily Mew, who is our Director of Product Management at TransPerfect. We have Mary D'Angelo Gutierrez, who is a security consultant at Accenture, and Marissa Schmidt, who is our Senior Director of Product Management at Citrix. I'm going to give them their own opportunity to introduce themselves. And when you do so, if we're going to talk about all the different career options we have, we might as well take it from the beginning. And when you introduce yourself, I want you to tell me, when you were a kid before college, what did you want to be when you grew up? And then tell me a little bit about what it is that you actually do now. Let's go, Lily.
Hi, I'm Lily. Well, before, I don't know, I never really had a career path or very specific career that I wanted to pursue. I guess in high school, when I first started to have my first computer, and that's how I have my interest in learning more about computer, getting into everything about a computer. So when I went to college, I pursued a major in computer science. But I also learned that I really didn't enjoy programming that much. So I ended up changing my major to information science and policy. It's less programming. I learned more about the internet, how to build a website using front end and back end technology, like front end as in HTML to code the what you actually see today. And when you log into a web page, that's what you see. And the back end is basically the server that hosts the website. So all of that, I have more interest in that. So I changed my major to that. After I graduated, I had a little bit hard time finding a job, right? I wasn't a programmer, which most of the jobs out there, they have software developer, programmer, and that's not what I enjoy to do. So I look for everything like webmaster, web designer, that kind of keywords. So and then I took on different odd jobs, like anything that has web in its job description. So I apply for them. I ended up working at a law firm and then a film academy.
Not expecting that.
It's very weird. Like I only dedicate about 10% of my time doing web task. And finally, I got a call from my current company, and they're looking for a localization engineer. And at the time, I didn't even know what localization is. Later, I learned it's really just another word for translation. You're translating content for a specific region, and that process is called localization. So I started off as a localization engineer, and then I moved to being a solutions engineer. The difference is really one, localization is you more working for production, and then solutions engineer, it's you're working more client facing, providing solution using the company's software. So as I was working on both position, I was involved with the initial product that my company had developed. And I wasn't really handling the product as a product manager, but I was very interested in using the product, give a lot of feedback to our developers. So slowly I sort of become unofficial product manager for the product. So I finally told my manager, I said I wanted to focus on managing the product because I see a lot of areas where I can spend more of my time and focus on. So I turned myself into a full-time product manager after all the engineering tasks. So here I am.
I'm going to ask you more about what it means to be a product manager, but there are many times that we get stuck in unofficial roles and have to actually ask to be in them officially. So I get it. What about you, Mary D'Angelo?
So good evening, good afternoon, everyone. So when I was a kid, I wanted to be a fashion designer. Yeah, little did I know when I was 8 years old, I grew up in Peru, so they had these first computers, those big ones, grayish, beige. I love them because they follow my instructions. They follow. And that's when I became in love with computers.
Nice.
So fashion designer, now it's a hobby. I go window shopping. I love to learn about the latest and ever, but computers started to become my first love. After that, I moved to the US, and English wasn't my first language. I had to learn the language, and guess the easiest classes for me were math. So it was easier for me to do the math because you don't require a specific language. It's just universal.
Numbers.
And then after that, I went to a community college. I found a passion for computer science. My first job was as a tutor, math tutor, computer science tutor. And that's when I learned to enjoy working with people. Right after that, I moved to college. I went to Rochester Institute of Technology. And there I went for computer science. I believed that I wanted to have a strong technology background in order to see a lot of opportunities. However, the degree requires a year of internship co-ops, and I've interned in different companies. And what I learned is that coding wasn't my passion anymore, but it was the organization of everything. How testing worked, how software engineers work, what was the link between them, what was missing between them, how can you organize it in a way that it works seamlessly. And right after I graduated, actually 2 weeks after, I joined Accenture. I've been at Accenture for 5 years, and I've worked as a security analyst, cybersecurity analyst. That's how I started. I love it because I wear many hats in consulting. I'm able to do some project management, some technology stuff, assessments for different companies in different industries. And I'm an ass of, I work learning anything that has to do with cybersecurity.
Yeah, nice. I like that you talked about, even though you wanted to be a fashion designer, it's still a hobby, right? All the interests we have over time don't go away. They just have different roles in our lives. So Marissa, what was it for you?
Well, when I was a kid, all you did is watch the small TVs that showed either an actress or a singer or dancer.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to dance. I do love dancing.
Yeah.
So that was when I was still really young in the Philippines, and then we moved here in the Bay Area when I was young. And I wanted to get my radio working, and it would not work. So I took the radio apart, put it back together, and see if how I can fix it. And that to me was interesting. taking things apart.
Yeah.
And so when I went to high school and I was told to do something in a computer, and I did the same thing. I opened the computer and figure out what's in there, and I'm trying to figure out how to get the C prompt and all those things. So that was interesting to me. So that then my counselor says, you like math, you should do engineering. And that's how I went to computer engineering at Cal Poly. And but I still like dancing. So throughout, I took the dance classes. Hip hop dancing. I grew up from Oakland, right? So
I want videos.
Huh?
I want videos.
Yeah, so that is so even though I went to Cal Poly in computer engineering, I continued that hobby of dancing, and now I do UJAM dancing while here. But I went back to Silicon Valley after college, and I did do the going into the lab, really getting into the details of how the whole networking infrastructure work, how we create this cloud computing, all these different things. And so yeah, so that was a passion to me, because it was, again, putting things together, taking it apart, and making the internet work, right? In one of the demos, I was told to go in front of the customer and present on the product. And that day, I realized, wow, this thing is fun, like showcasing the product, besides telling what the product is and so forth. And so that was so interesting to me. And the point where I got to know the product manager. And then after a few years working with the product manager, and he's telling me how I should create this product. And I said, why do you think we should create that? So I started to question all the things that he's asking. So then one day, because I said, I really like the being in front of the customer, I said, I want to do your job. And then so the GM, the general manager at that time, said, I think you could, I think it's a great segue for you, because you do like being in front of the customer. So I did. So I went to product management, and I've been product management ever since. And it's talking in front of customer about the technology. I still have to be geeky and get technical with all of them, and you have to. But now in my ways of speaking, and I traveled to 25 countries since then, and pretty much spoken in all different events, from Russia to Korea to Japan, you name it.
Yeah.
Talking about the product, and I love it, and I still do dancing. So there you go.
Nice. Awesome. I think the one thing I heard in all of your introductions is that before you even knew what opportunities were there were certain skills that you had that other people saw and said, okay, you're going to be awesome in this other role. So Marissa, I'm actually going to come back to you and ask the first question, which is, before we even get into depth about what those different jobs and roles are, what were the skills that you just saw were so important to have in tech, regardless of whether or not you're an engineer?
Very good question, Cadence. Definitely the ability to establish rapport with the people that you're talking to, and just having that soft skills. Man, no one trained that, and I didn't. When I was taking computer classes, no one told me that I should be a great speaker, or just being able to speak to your colleagues and explain something in whiteboards and things like that. I did not know that I should be learning how to do PowerPoint, for goodness sake, right? Soft skills definitely key, and really having that eye to eye connection with the engineer is actually very important. And being in front of those customers, no matter what job you take, whether it's marketing, product management, whatever roles that comes, that ability to communicate and really establish that relationship across to all your different teams is critical.
Yeah. Nice. And Lily, I remember you were talking about when you were really, really early, fresh out of college, you were looking at those different jobs and roles. What sorts of skills did you see then that were kind of coming across and you even still see now that you think whether or not you're an engineer, this is a core skill to have in the tech world?
I would say soft skills is definitely a lot important than hardcore skills. I mean, I
Okay.
learned a lot of technical skills on my own through school, but you will find that a lot of these skills don't really aren't that used. I mean, it's not useful 100%. I think a communication, be able to communicate effectively and also ask questions when you start out in a new company. I think asking questions, learn, communicate with colleagues definitely helps to get yourself started.
Okay, nice. Mary Dambs, I'm going to ask you the next question, which is a lot of the people in this audience are in school right now. And so they're trying to figure out, okay, what skills do I have? And for a college student, the best association for a new job is their major. And so for people that are maybe similar to you in which they like all the technical stuff, but maybe don't want to be the ones executing it, what sorts of majors do you recommend for them, or how can they translate a major that they're currently in into a non-engineering role?
That's a great question. So I'm gonna give you a little background. I have my sister, she majored in biology, and I have convinced her for years, I tried to convince her skills are wonderful for the technical role. She works in a nonprofit job where she deals with community, she deals with different issues. And what I would say is, no matter what degree you are in, when you become a problem solver, you will apply it to anything that comes to mind. That is the biggest skill that you should have, besides communication, which is top number one. I couldn't agree more with Marisa and Lily, is problem solving skills, because sometimes the problems can be, even in technology, can be even as easy as emotional problems within the team. And you need to be able to really understand, okay, what are people feeling? Why is it not being done this way? How can we improve that? And if you have it is more comfortable when you have a science background to move into the technical background. So find your passion. Have do what you really enjoy doing in college. But besides that, build your soft skills. The best classes weren't the ones that were the technical, as Lily mentioned, where Marisa mentioned, where joining the leadership institute from my school, working, being part of groups, starting my own club with my best friend. We started a salsa dancing club. And that showed me how to start something, how to build a foundation, how to create relationships so that we can find someone that teaches it. You will use those skills every day in your life.
Yeah.
So,
Marissa, I saw that you answered a question in the chat, and I actually think I want you to answer it for everyone. And so the question was, do you think a CS major is necessary for the product management role? And then I also want to ask the second part of that, which is, if that's not necessary, what other majors may help for that role?
Good question. And I tried to answer in one of them is so it depends on the company and the product that you're getting into. Usually in Silicon Valley, especially at Google, Facebook, you name it, you do need to have that engineering major where there's computer science. I'm computer engineering, so I could be both hardware and software. So I wasn't tied to one thing. So that helped me to actually be more broad. So I was able to apply in different companies. So it depends what, but you don't have to do the computer programming outside of the college, but having the engineering degree gives you more credibility in front of those engineers because you're telling them what to do. Management is the owner of that product. In my company, I own 80% of the product. From a business perspective, that's over 400 million, right?
Yeah.
So it's critical when they have to listen. You need to at least know and speak their language. And so, yeah, it's tough classes, but at the end of the day, you don't need to be a computer programmer, but just finish an engineering degree, whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Okay. Lily, I said I was going to come back to you with this question. While we're talking about product managers, can you help us differentiate product management versus project management versus program management? To somebody not in tech, those all mean the exact same thing.
Well, I think of these, program manager and project manager might mean different things in different companies. In my company, project manager for production team, they manages all of the jobs that are coming from clients, scheduled task for engineering work, for translation, for translator, like they have to set timeline, so that kind of thing. So it's not very technical at all. We have a program manager. Program manager, it's more for communication with the client, help them understand what their needs are in terms of getting their products or their software translated, and what is the scope, what solutions we have from our company, like what technology we have in order to provide them the kind of solutions. And the program manager are also they don't need to be technical, but they do need to know the software, how it functions, what functionalities are in there, so that they can communicate to the client. If there is anything that's too technical, like for example, if our clients is very technical and they ask certain questions that the program manager cannot answer, then they will contact either product manager for more information, or if product manager like myself cannot answer the question, I go to our developers to find out more information. So product manager, for me, the product that I'm managing is more technical than some of the other ones. I know some my colleagues, they don't have engineering background, and they are managing some of the products as well. So being a product manager doesn't always have to have engineering background, but like Marissa said, it really helps a lot, because when you communicate to developers, especially, you can define the requirements better, you speak their language, right? So you're not just putting your users' requirement, their words, as the request to the developers. I mean, some developer has more understanding of what you're asking, but sometimes they don't always ask enough question back to you to define things more specifically. And what end up happening is the software gets developed and the functionality don't really meet the requirement of the user because of the miscommunication. So I mentioned communication is very important. It's in not just in product management, but in all areas, right? So so I guess do you need a software engineering background? I would say it helps. And if you want to be a product manager, you definitely should learn, even if you don't have a degree in engineering, but you do need to expect yourself to learn, because if you don't keep up with the skills and knowledge, you're not going to be successful.
Yeah, it's a combination of having literacy of engineering in general, plus being able to be a planner, plus kind of having that like sales aspect of being able to work with the people who are actually putting the money behind your project and who are deciding what kind of things they want the product to do in the future. And I will talk a little bit more about what it looks like to actually get these roles, right? Like the interview process, how do you navigate salaries and stuff like that. But Mary D'Angelo, I want to give you an opportunity too to talk about your role as well. There's a couple of questions that came in. So one, can you just explain to us what a tech consultant is? Because when I was in college, consulting just sounded like answering questions if you look up the Google definition. But what is it actually? And then on your day-to-day, what does it look like?
So consultants are people that solve undefined problems for our clients.
Okay.
That's how I can resume that. Undefined meaning because when we get, our client tells us this is the problem, and 95% of the time, it turns out that the problem is not that one, but it's something else. And understanding the entire perspective from the business side as well as the technical side is very important. When we start in consulting, first you're an analyst, and your job is to understand the culture of the consulting company, to learn as many skills as you can. Certificates, you get trained depending on the company that you are in, and then you can specialize in a particular service option, or you can diverse. For example, I started as an identity and access management analyst.
What does that mean?
It means every time you log in your system, we put the middleware in between the platform and authenticating you, verifying that who you are and where you are, and so on and so forth. And after that, I also learn about security policy, which is more of the standards of more like a law degree, a small law degree. Then I also work in application security, that's more hands-on technology. And I'm currently in data loss prevention, meaning a company should store their data in such a way that if there is a hack, that forbids, they are able to retrieve that data immediately and solve the problem as soon as possible. There are many steps into that, and many companies forget about that, and they apply it at the end. So usually as a security consultant, it is very difficult to sell a business person that security is important, but when the hacks happen and
There's
you
risk.
don't know when it happened, now we have all-nighters and a lot of work to do.
Right, exactly. That makes sense. Okay, so boom, we've gotten everybody's scope. We know what everybody does in their day-to-day, but we are only 4 people in a massive industry. Outside of what you guys do, what are the actual other opportunities that are in this field that are not necessarily engineering roles, but just what else is out there? Marissa, I know you talked about this a little bit for someone's question, but how would you describe the entire scope of the options that are in tech?
Okay, I can do it. So as a product, so in tech, it's a big Silicon Valley over here, right? Usually it starts with the product,
Yeah.
That product has, there's the engineering side, which I know is an option, but not the only option. After the product is about to go launch, you can have product marketing, technical marketing, field engineering. They're the one hanging out, talking to the customer day to day. You can do field marketing, marketing that product in a specific region, or market it in other regions. Lily was talking about localization. You can have field marketing for Japan, for example, which is different from the ones that are in Korea. So they have different field marketing in the different
Yeah.
regions. There's manufacturing, supply chain, all these different folks that works in my building, that all supports the product. They're not necessarily have to be technical like me with engineering, but they support my product. They're the one creating the web designs in the website, doing the collateral data sheets for my product, and they put all of the blogs, the webinars, all this different planning for the product. So many different ways, but based on a product in Silicon Valley, or if you're at Google, Facebook, a similar thing. You'll need marketing, you need field sales, all those things. Does that help?
Yeah, I think so. It's kind of like in these different pillars, right? So you have the people that are like the strategic thinkers, you have the product managers, the program managers, the project managers. And then this isn't about engineering per se, but you have different engineering functions. Everything's not coding. There are people that manage security. There are people that manage making sure that everything stays up and doesn't shut down. There are people that manage the front end side that the users do. There are people that manage the back end, which is all the data and where things are stored. And then there's the designers, and even within designers, there are different types of functions, right? There's the people that manage research and testing. There's the people that manage the UI of it, which is kind of like an advanced version of graphic design. And there's the people that do experience, that are pretty much like behavioral psychologists in a way. And then there's even the people that manage, like when we talk about infrastructure, the testing of the product and all of that. At first glance, that sounds very overwhelming, because it's going to be hard to find an article that shows you this massive map of what all your opportunities are, right? And a lot of this stuff, you have to work your way up to it. Nobody is going to get a director of product management position right out of undergrad. It's just not going to happen unless you did undergrad after, halfway through your career. And so, Lily, I think I'll ask you this question is, for the larger scope, what are the actual entry-level jobs that our students may be seeing, or which ones are the easiest to kind of get started and prepare for now?
With engineering background or without engineering background?
Let's talk about
without engineering background in the technology industry. I think, let me try to think. Well, my company is a translation company. It wasn't a technology company to start with. Initially, TransPerfect, well, I started with translation.com. So the company started as a sister company for TransPerfect. It specialized in translating websites for different company. We used to use other companies' technology. So it costs a lot of money to pay for other company to use their software. So what we ended up doing is we hire our own group of developers and build our own tools. So my experience is a little bit different. I start off with a localization engineer. I know that not all of my colleagues have engineering background. So through trainings and from the experienced colleagues, it is doable, even though the title has engineer. It's not as scary as software engineer, that you have to know how to code, and it's not technical, but it definitely requires I guess a mindset to solve problems. All right, so localization engineer, I think one of the question someone had asked about that. So the company has to process a lot of different source file in order to get that translated. So that process requires the engineer to know different file formats, and you like Office files are the most common ones that majority people know, and then there are also the website file formats like HTML, PHP. Now it's more JSON file, JSON files, XML files. These are the most common types of files. I think localization engineer is a good one. It does require some engineering learning as you start. Maybe a project manager would be a good start. I know someone who has been working as project manager for years, and then she learned how to use our products, and she's more familiar with the product, and she wanted to be a product manager after a few years of working with product. In fact, some of not on my team, but someone else that I know, she worked as a localization engineer, and then she moved on to being QA, quality assurance of the products. So she has more exposure with the products. And then now she's also a product manager. So it's all about learning a new tool, learning about the applications, whether it's a mobile application, web application, or desktop application. So anything that you use on your computer, your mobile app, if you have interested on it, do some research. Just Google like product management, software development, like just have some basic idea of what it is. And then, like if you do interview, at least you're not completely clueless of what it is, right?
Yeah, nice. Mary D'Angelo, what would you say are some of the entry-level roles that people can kind of start looking at, or things that they may expect to see, either titles that they could be comfortable feeling like they could actually get into out of graduation?
Sure. I would say a great way to see what you want is that many companies that are not necessarily tech companies, so broaden your horizons. Think about, okay, you want to work in a fashion design brand, or you want to work for a bank. Many of these companies have programs specific for entry-level students that they rotate you through different positions. And they hire people from physics degrees, psychology degrees. Really, I work with many of them. Some of them get hired during the intern process. Some of them get hired right before school. You graduate before school. So my suggestion is always go to the career fairs during your last year before graduation. Apply for as many jobs as possible, because those programs are directly targeted for that. They start, some of them start as early as July and end October, maximum November if you go to conferences and so on and so forth. But that's the time frame. When I think, without lying, I interviewed for about 100 companies. So I brought down, I learned what I wanted, what it meant to interview, what culture I like, what culture I didn't like, what was my expectation, how to meet my expectations, and how to have a broader perspective. I chose consulting because I get bored easily, so I wanted to try different things. But there are other opportunities. Consulting is not the only one. It's just about being informed, following the trends in recruiting. Your career department is the most useful. Always make your best friend out of them. It doesn't matter what your degree is. I would say go for it. Don't only target the tech companies, because those are going to be they are looking for a specific stereotype. So besides those, look somewhere else.
Yeah.
They will impress you.
Yeah. You just told my entire career story and you didn't even know it. So story time. When I was a junior in undergrad, I was involved in the National Society of Black Engineers, who has a very large national convention every year, just like many other collegiate and academic organizations. At that career fair, the strongest interview I had was with GE, General Electric. I was hired as an intern for the summer between my junior and senior year, as an internship for GE's rotational program. End of the internship, this is the thing that's really nice about rotational programs, because you end the internship and then they offer you the job for after graduation. And so when I graduated, I had a degree in what our school, it had a different name, but it was basically a human computer interaction and design program, which I saw somebody in the chat talk about, so gang. And I also had a minor in CS, because I was one of those people where I was like, I'm going to work in tech. Don't really want to do coding, but I don't want it to be a fallback because it's not seen on my resume somewhere. And so I got it as a minor, entered into this rotational program where I moved every 6 months and tried out different functions, right? They'll put you in a design role, they'll put you in an engineering role, they'll put you in different types of management roles. And last year is when I finished that program and entered into a different design role at GE. GE is not a tech company. Don't let anybody convince you otherwise. GE is an industrial company that does tech. And just like Lily, what you were talking about is there are plenty of companies out there that have tech jobs. So you do not have to go after the Googles and the Microsofts and the Apples. There are tech jobs everywhere, because what we talk about as tech today is something that is globally needed and is always going to be in demand, right? The skills may change, but it's always going to be in demand. And so for me, and I'll just kind of touch on this a little bit because we don't have any other designers here. I knew that I wanted to go into design because, like I said, I really care about everyday people. I really care about what we call business to consumer products that are directly to people. And so for the people out there that are questioning whether design is right for them, let me break down a couple of things for you, because this field can be confusing. When people talk about UX, they're talking about user experience. When they're talking about UI, they're talking about user interface. The difference is someone who specializes in UX specializes in the overall experience that any user has in a product. So it's a mix of how they feel about the product, how easily they can get their tasks done. When it's time for you to get your grades back from a teacher, how quickly can you log in, check your grade, and go handle your feelings? If that takes 10 minutes, probably not a good user experience. If it takes 30 seconds, you might be doing something right. The product, you might be doing something right. User interface, people that specialize in that are probably visual designers. So they specialize in making sure the buttons are gorgeous. and that the layout is on point in a way that the user can very easily scan the information and get to what they need to do. People enter the UX field, because remember, UX involves the interface, right? The entire experience is also what includes what it looks like. People enter that field from all over, from engineering, from product management, from roles that have nothing to do with tech, because it is just about your ability to advocate for a user, right? It's not about, it's not the same as market research, right? Where you're trying to sell somebody something. No, these users are coming here to do something. They probably don't have a choice. And so when you're thinking about whether or not this field is right for you, or you know that it's what you want to do and you're trying to figure out how to get there, what you'll hear the most is that the most important thing to get you an interview in this field is being able to communicate your design process, right? So having a portfolio online that has examples of your projects and how you think through the design thinking process, which Google that later, how you think about iterations, how you take what our product managers here will provide you as a new feature. Hey, the user needs to be able to do this thing in our tool now. And then how you translate that into what the actual visual and technical experience is going to look like is really important to have documented somewhere, because this field is different than other ones in that this is a field where you have to have something that speaks on its own in order to make it through the interview process, right? And so there were a couple questions out there about UX. If you have more, just throw them in there and I'll try to answer them either through our discussion or on my own. But where that does bring us is I do want to talk, at least one person answer a question about the interview process. So let's say we have our students out there that are, they know what they want to do. They have everything with their degree set up the way that's going to get them recognized. Marissa, how does someone prepare for the different types of interviews that might come up for tech roles? And how do they navigate salaries, like all of that?
Good question. For technical interviews, definitely you do need to know the basics. Even just, I know you're not going to do programming, things like that. It depends what roles you're applying for, but look at the requirements of the job description, and it'll tell you actually, this is a plus. You need to know C, C++, Python, whatever it is. If those are required, you probably should make sure you at least know and open your or your notes on this area, because that will probably be in the interview. So most of the time, anything that requires in that job description, they tell you exactly what you need. If you need some information for Amazon, how do you set something up in Amazon or Azure, Google Cloud, those are important things to at least highlight and understand those before the interview. So very, very good one to know. And then so that's for any technical interviews, understanding. And what you should also do is check out who your interviewer is. Go check him. I know it's like stalking, but in LinkedIn, they have their profile there. Get to know a little bit who they are.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah.
We only have a couple minutes left, and so I want to provide the students with one last piece of advice. So just really quick round robin. What is the one piece of advice you would give to someone in this position of trying to look for a role, being in school, and wanting to see what opportunities are not necessarily engineering? Lily, what would you say?
Well, I think, if you want to get into the tech industry, you probably have some idea what you want to do, right? So based on that, do some research to see what kind of jobs are out there. Product manager, it's very broad for, like Marissa said, it could be hardware, it could be software. So if it's a software that you want to get into, there's also software that's not that that's not requiring a very technical background. So if that's what you want to do, just look for those and just check out different industry, not necessarily the big to name tech companies, right? So even your local company that you know of, check to see if they have any job offer. Maybe somebody wants to have a product manager for website, and also UX. I mean, I I do mock-ups for UI, but definitely not anywhere close to UX. But UX is super important for software development, for mobile app, for web application. So any software that for a particular function, you have to click 10 clicks in order to get to something, it's really bad design. So there's a lot of jobs out there with need people in UX experience. Like if you're very good at pinpointing these types of problems as you look at the online application, this is probably your area that you want to get into.
Okay. Mary D'Angelo, really, really quick, one piece of advice.
One piece of advice is be confident.
Yeah.
No matter what you study, where you come from, what your skills are, be confident of who you are and show that in your interview.
Yeah. Nice. What about you, Marissa?
Be yourself, have fun. I want the kid to know that they can do what they want and have that confidence and have fun, right? So.
Yeah. Awesome. And mine would be just to create your own experiences. So thanks, guys. Welcome back, Emily.
Y'all, I can't believe how fast this went by. The questions in the audience were just so amazing. We will put some of your best advice in our follow-up email tomorrow. I would like to ask all of our attendees to just grab your phone and tell us your thoughts. One thing I'll tell you is as a team, we're planning more of these talks for 2022. And so if you have ideas for topics that you'd like to hear more about, put it in the survey. Tell us what you're interested in learning about, and we will consider it for next year. I want to also just Cadence, Lily, Marissa, Mary D'Angelo, like each of you had different experiences, different journeys, but the themes felt so similar. And I feel like all of our attendees, I'm hoping you took away some of these really concrete themes, to believe in yourself, to experiment, to do research, to consider different options, not just the exact paths that everybody else is thinking about. I also found your stories really inspiring. Marissa, I love that you continue to dance. I love that you all shared a little bit about yourselves outside of work, because we are all whole human beings that love tech and are interested in computer science, but also have other interests. And this was just a delightful conversation. And Cadence, thank you so much for bringing your moderation skills to us tonight, and to all 4 of your companies for sponsoring this event. Everybody will get an email tomorrow. There's a recording. If you want to come back to like one of those great pieces of advice that Lily gave, or you don't remember the name of the thing that somebody said, check the recording. And we will also send you some of the sort of summarized advice given tonight. And this will be up on YouTube. So folks that weren't able to watch, maybe share it with your classmates or your colleagues. And we will hope to catch you in 2022 at our next Girls Who Code talk. Thank you again, panelists. Snaps for them. Thank you, all of you attendees, for spending your Thursday evening with us. And we're so sorry we couldn't get to every question. You asked so many phenomenal questions. Thank you, everybody. Look at those thank yous coming in. Panelists, you killed it. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.